All right. Now, one problem that has been in the talk of town, in the mouth of everybody, is drainage, flooding in Kenya. Every time it rains, there is always a problem with the drainage. Now, the drainage system was done in Kenya and specifically in Nairobi County so many years ago when our population was smaller compared to the current population that is in Nairobi. The old drainage was designed to serve less than 500,000 people back then. But the city population has grown and it has since ballooned to about 5 million people in Nairobi, over 5 million people in Nairobi County. So what can be done to address the drainage system? This morning, this is the viewpoint, and this morning we'll be talking about the drainage system in Kenya and how it can be addressed. What is the role of engineering? Specifically, what are engineers doing to address this? What's the role of engineering in addressing the drainage system? This morning on the viewpoint, I'm joined by engineer Linda Radiro. She is a CEO for the Institution of Engineers in Kenya, or IEK. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for finding time to join me this morning.
Yes.
Remember, you can be part of this conversation on the viewpoint. The hashtag, as always, is Good Morning Kenya. Tag me at Ram Aguko at KBC. Channel 1 is the official station handle. My colleague's handle at Jane Wamboy. The hashtag, as always, is Good Morning Kenya. If you prefer SMS, 20154 is the SMS number. Start with the word Channel 1. Tell us your name and where you are watching us from. We'll be sure to sample your feedback as we continue with this morning conversation. Good morning. My name is Ram Aguko. Now, Engineer Radiro, yes. What is the role of engineering in addressing the drainage system? But before we touch into that, I'm aware you're also the CEO of the IEK. You'll be telling us more about what IEK is all about. But just to kickstart us off, what is the role of engineering in addressing drainage?
Engineers, first of all, are in charge of resizing the drainage structures that actually take off the surface runoff. And also we are in charge of predicting, let's say, the flooding periods and stuff like that. So,
all right.
Okay.
So as you talk about drainage, what is IEK all about?
IEK is a learned society for professional engineers. It started way back in 1945 as the East African Professional Society before it changed its name in 1959 to East African Institution of Engineers. And then when the East African community broke up, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda had to split, whereby right now we have the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. That's in 1972.
1972.
Yes.
And ever since, so it has been there since then till now.
Yes, and we are also in charge of the engineers' welfare in the country, whereby we take care of all their needs in the sense that we take care of their fees, we take care, in case of they have any issues in their jobs, they reach out to us. And also we are in charge of placing people in boards. That is in Kenya Roads Board, KERA. Most of these institutions reach out to us whenever they want to place technical expertise in their professional bodies.
Do you say that they work independently from
Yes.
IEK, or do they come under IEK?
They work independently from IEK, but we are in charge of appointing them. We actually, like an advisory role, in the sense that we provide that expertise from our members, that is. Yes.
And looking at how engineering has been addressed in Kenya, do you have IEK taking its place, especially in bringing all engineers together and making its impact on the ground, especially when it comes to addressing all, because engineering is broad?
Yes.
Yes.
It's basically our mandate, in the sense that if you see the infiltration of foreigners currently, that it's a struggle that we are having. We've managed to deal with it in the sense that we've ensured that they have to pass through our Engineers Board of Kenya before they seek for work permit from the immigration. So that will soon be a thing of the past, whereby you'll see infiltration of maybe Chinese nationals and everything. Yes.
But if
Otherwise,
you look at...
okay.
Yes, otherwise?
Otherwise, we basically take care of our members. Yes.
If you look at the addressing, for example, roads.
Yes.
We've had other engineers coming in from out of Kenya,
Yes.
coming in to do construction of roads in the country, looking into the roads, how it looks like, questioning our own engineers in Kenya.
Yeah.
And thereby, do you think that our stand as Kenyans in terms of engineering, is it quality compared to engineering styles that are being brought in from by foreigners from outside into the country? For example, take a case study, look at Thika Road.
Yeah. And not really, in the sense that all these roads that you see, most of them were designed back in 1970s. And they were designed by our very able engineers. The fact that we got into financial agreements probably will be one of the reasons that they had to bring in maybe their expertise. Otherwise, all this construction that you see around are actually supervised by Kenyan engineers. Even that Thika Road was supervised by a Kenyan consulting firm. Yes.
I'm looking at Mbagathi. How was... I'm aware, I don't know if you normally use Mbagathi as a
Yes.
case study when it comes to training and learning on
Yes,
roads.
we do.
You do that?
Yes. The difference between Mbagathi Road and maybe other roads is the fact that it's a concrete paved road. You understand? Concrete paved road has its advantages and disadvantages, in the sense that you'd rarely find people repairing it, maybe even in quarterly or even a whole year can go without it being repaired. In the sense that it's more durable compared to the rest, but it's more expensive.
Why don't we go for that in road construction?
Due to the fact that it's expensive, and the fact that the disadvantage is that it wears your tires out so fast. Yeah, so it has its demerits and merits. Otherwise, if we could all go back to maybe that, it will help us in the sense that it's rarely affected by flood waters. The fact that water does not infiltrate into it easily makes it so easy to use. Yeah.
Engineer, what is the role of engineering in this modern day society, in the current world right now?
Engineers, generally, we are in charge of the innovations and all that. We apply our principles of mathematics and science in coming up with the innovations that you see around. Even as part of this country, the government's agenda, the Big Four agenda, you can't really implement the Big Four agenda without us engineers. If we go to food security, we'll be in charge of the irrigation. Irrigation is designed by our able engineers. The dams are also designed by our engineers and supervised by our engineers. If you go to manufacturing, we are the ones in charge of power generation. You see GDC, that is the KenGen, the KPLC. All these are run by the engineers. If you go to affordable housing, we are also there.
You are everywhere.
We are everywhere. If you go to universal healthcare, there's no way a doctor will survive without an engineer, because we are the ones who build all those hospitals that people use. We are the ones in charge of the electricity that is being used in the ICUs. We are in charge of your roads. We basically engineer everything.
Engineer everything,
Yes.
roads, water, construction,
Yes, so
housing.
basically, in the modern day world, even from time immemorial, you cannot live without an engineer.
But you see, the role of IEK is not quite felt, especially
Yes.
in Kenya. Why
I
so?
agree. The fact that we are not visible, the fact that we don't come out in the media. General engineers are used to working behind their desks with their long rulers and stuff. But now is when we are trying to come out.
You're taking the rulers to the streets.
We are taking the rulers to the streets. Even recently on March 4th, when we had the World Engineers Day, we marched around the streets, but you didn't see us making any noise. We are naturally like that, but we are trying to be felt.
You're naturally like that. You're
Yes.
silent people.
Yes. We've realized we need people like you in order to be felt, in order to answer questions that need technical expertise.
But do you think engineers in Kenya are delivering? Because you've talked about your roles. You are everywhere. In all sectors,
Yes.
there is an engineer. Are they being felt, especially here in Kenya?
Yes, we are delivering in the sense that all these engineers that you see from foreign countries, actually most of them are not engineers technically. They're just maybe technicians and stuff. The engineers themselves come and supervise whatever they have to implement. We are the ones who designed all those roads. We are the ones who are in charge of, there's no maybe payment certificate for all those roads that will pass without a Kenyan engineer being in charge.
You said there's a difference between an engineer and
No,
the
like the
technician.
IPCs. Payment difference, yeah.
There's
Most of them, they bring this lower level technicians, basically. But the senior engineers are from Kenya.
Also, these people going around calling themselves NITA engineer, call me engineer.
Yeah, they misuse that word. But it's regulated. It's actually in the Act. You're not even allowed to use that name without having gone through the 3 years, what's it called, training.
You know, some people call their children engineer.
Yes, you bless them in advance.
You bless them in advance.
Yes.
Nasema huyu ni engineer.
Yes.
Engineer Maguko. If you talk about someone having that name, it means that they must have gone through some long process.
Yes,
you know,
3 years.
3 years going through academia.
Post-registration. First of all, when you graduate, you're supposed to be registered by the Engineers Board of Kenya, which is the regulatory body. IK is free from the government. We are, yes, completely free. So autonomous, that is. But you cannot be registered as a professional engineer. First of all, when you register as a GE, you come to IK, you're registered as a graduate member, which is the professional society, that is. Then after that, you take 3 years of training within supervision and design in any engineering project, after which you present yourself to either of the two bodies for your interview. You'll go through an oral interview and also written interview. Then after that, if you pass, you'll be able to be called a professional engineer. All these problems that you see of buildings collapsing are issues to deal with quacks. If you don't have a registered professional engineer checking your work, supervising your construction, you'll have such issues. So that's where we come in.
So the person to be blamed when buildings collapse are the engineers, or they are not the engineers?
We've been laid back in the regulatory aspect, but from now henceforth, it will be really difficult because we'll go through the whole process of checking from the word go, from the client. We'll know who the client is. We'll know who he contacted for the work. Then we'll get the culprits.
So it's about the regulation?
Yeah, we need the
not
collaborative.
The engineer.
Yeah, not the engineer himself. Our engineers are very able. This Kina KICC, all this were done by our very own engineers. The Nyali Bridge was done by the engineers. Our JKIA, the airport itself, was done by our very able engineers.
They have never collapsed?
They have never collapsed. In this country, with an engineer, it's so hard. Almost impossible, actually.
Let's talk about drainage, because there's a lot that we can touch on, because
Yes.
engineers touch on so many things. Housing, I am really inclined to really address that issue on housing.
Yes.
And why buildings collapse, and why some roads are not doing as well as others. But now, in urban planning, earlier on I mentioned that the urban planning for Nairobi,
Yes.
specifically, right now the planning was different back then, for a different population, about 500,000. But now we have over 5 million people and the numbers have grown. But now, what's the role of urban planning, especially in engineering?
It's interesting because earlier on, the planning issue was under the engineering department until it was moved to the planning, now the planning department. That's when we started having all these issues.
Yeah.
However, as engineers, like you want to know the role of engineers in the planning issues, and the reason why we are going through all this is because most of the issues, most of the aspects in our country are not really devolved. Like factories, this industrialization, manufacturing plants, everyone wants to set up in Nairobi. Ideally, all this should be set up outside. You know, the problem is
distributed in all counties.
Yes. Every time someone finishes college, finishes high school, they all want to come and visit one of their relatives in Nairobi. They all want to come and look for work in Nairobi. When they come here, it means we have to develop more housing, develop more drainage for them, but there's really no space. When you build houses, like for instance, the one that was brought down directly opposite Timol, that was one of the issues that was bringing flooding, probably in South Sea, because they're on the waterway. You cannot change the course of water naturally. Geographically, yes. You cannot change. If it's upstream, the people downstream will suffer. That's where South Sea comes in.
So if, for that building that was demolished,
Yes.
it was proper for it to be demolished?
Yes.
Because it was interfering with the drainage system?
Yes. You know, when it rains, like for instance, the way, let's say Ngong Road was before, it was forested all through. But now there are so many buildings and water doesn't have anywhere to go. Like for instance, it can't infiltrate into the soil. So what happens? It has to find a way of going, like a place to go.
But it is...
So it will just go to your houses and flood your houses because you are actually in its path.
But it is an engineer who was there when the building was constructed,
and
an engineer who is also going to be there when it's being demolished.
Yes. That one you can't fault us, in the sense that the people who approved, it starts way from the lands department. The people who approved the construction for that thing, the people who took all this, even NEMA were involved, all these people are supposed to be take up to book, because there's an original plan of how things were supposed to be. When it was planned by engineers, there's some places you shouldn't have put structures on. But when you come in with plans, you've changed everything without necessarily involving an engineer, we come up with these problems.
So an engineer was not involved in your view?
Yes, especially in the planning bit, because there's an original master plan for Nairobi, which took care of all this.
Have you taken a look at the master plan of Nairobi, for example?
Yes.
How is it, professionally? How is it working towards, or is it geared towards, future opportunities? Is it open, in addressing issues to do with the increase in population?
Yes, it is open towards addressing that, especially the one that's being revised, in the sense that before you put up maybe a structure, you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you'll be able to assist even the roads engineers. You'll involve a roads engineer, in the sense that you'll be able to redesign maybe the drainage structure coming from your place, the stormwater drainage patterns, and maybe even come up with a simple solution like subsurface drains to take care of whatever will happen. And even these gutters, water harvesting and all that, you'll be able to take care of that. Yes.
And I'm looking at Nairobi.
Yes.
Because there are so many places in Nairobi that have been experiencing flooding. But not just in Nairobi, I'm aware that also other parts of the country have the same problem. But why do we have poor drainage in Nairobi?
Because those were old drainage structures. Like for instance, technically, we have, say, 600 millimeters culvert, which was designed to take care of a certain millimeter of rainfall, that is the surface runoff. But now, here's a case that we still have the 600 millimeter culvert, that small culvert. But the amount of rainfall has gone higher. The amount of surface rainfall surface runoff has also increased. That particular drainage won't be able to handle such a situation, also in the sense that we don't have a proper garbage collection solution for the city, in the sense that people dump things whenever they feel like. And that leads to a blockage of drains, which probably will lead to all the pothole issues that we have.
Still on the issues with the urban planning, because now you talked about garbage, you've talked about the You said 600?
600 millimeter culvert.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So when you do planning, urban
Yes.
planning, who does it specifically? Is it the engineer? Because you said it was transferred.
Yes.
Who does it currently?
Currently, it's being handled by the planners.
By the planners?
Yes.
And who should do it?
Ideally, they should involve fully, like they should fully involve the engineers.
Engineers.
Yes.
So as we speak, engineers are not involved in planning.
Yes, they're not involved.
Do you think that's a weakness?
Yes, it is a weakness in our country. But I'd urge the government to find a solution in the sense that they need to move it back to the engineering department or even involve engineers wherever they are, even if it's under urban planning.
Now, the reason why I was asking that is because I wanted to find out, when you look at planning,
Yes.
do we plan based on the current situation, the current population, or do we plan based on future expectations of the current situation and population?
We project during
project.
planning. Yes, we project the population. So whatever we projected probably back in 1970s, like for instance in Ngong Road, that's a basic example. The traffic that was supposed to use that road was lower than probably the design that we're currently having. You understand?
So back then,
in the day, they had planned for public transportation to be maybe this KBS. Remember the KBS buses? They were the ones supposed to be transporting people. But now we have a mess in the sense that the public transport has fully moved to the private sector. The government has really no control of the public transportation. That's why they're trying to come up with the bus rapid transit, trying to take it back to the public.
which has still also taken a lot of time.
Yeah, which has taken a lot of time. You know, once the public transportation is attractive, even the number of cars on the roads will reduce, because you'd be thinking, why should I drive to these studios?
So
why can't I just take these neat buses, these clean buses
So for
that are
Ngong
well
Road,
organized?
when they were planning for Ngong Road,
Yes.
back then, they had a specific number of people.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, I'm just theoretically speaking, throwing in numbers. Let's talk about 10,000.
Yes.
So they planned for, let's say, twice the number, 20,000.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yes.
All
That's
right.
an example, yes.
That was the strategy.
Theoretically, yeah, that
Theoretically
was the
speaking.
strategy. No
So-
one envisioned a place whereby public transportation wouldn't be this unattractive. Yes.
What do you think will be the way should be the way forward in regards to planning? Because I'm looking at cases. For example, we have South Sea. Yeah. It's in South Sea area. Are there measures that we can implement as of now to reduce the urban flooding that is experienced near that area, especially during the rainy season?
Yes. Like I said earlier, we need to reclaim the wetlands. What the government is currently doing is really commendable.
Yes.
They need to work hand in hand with the NEMA to map out all the affected areas, especially the ones upstream and even the ones downstream, to clear the way for the water, because water will never change its course. Otherwise, they will still keep on having such flooding problems until they clear the water paths. Yes, and the rains are upcoming. Yes.
But specifically, can we say that the volume of urban flooding in Nairobi County, for example, is going to increase in the near future?
It's bound to increase. Even in the recent times, like between August and December, you saw the amount of rainfalls that we experienced. Due to the climatic changes, we need to redesign our systems to cater for that.
But now, don't you see that it will be like deja vu again?
Pardon?
Because it will be like deja vu.
Yeah.
Deja vu.
Yeah.
When we have what was experienced in the past, planning for a specific number of people, not expecting that it will go even 5 times that number. won't it be experienced the same again if because you've taken, you've looked at the current plan
Yes.
for Nairobi County, what they are going to look for, to look forward to. Don't you see that that might be experienced again 20, 50 years from now, that we would have another increase in population, yet with poor drainage system and with poor planning?
What I envision, maybe in 20 to 30 years' time, is all these county governments will be so attractive to people that you won't really have need to come to Nairobi unless it's very necessary. We need to have airports, all those places, international airports, satellite, in order to take care of all these issues. Yes.
All right.
Like, for instance, issues like I said, someone clearing high school. Nairobi shouldn't be the focal point.
That everyone comes to Nairobi.
That everyone comes to Nairobi. There should be another factory maybe there that will be able to take care of them. There should be satellite factories all across the country. There should be, like, we should evolve all our industries such that you don't really think of Nairobi as that attractive. Whatever is in Nairobi should be replicated in all the other counties, so that we deal with this mess of urban densification.
Now, what are some of the engineering technological advances that currently we have or we should be looking forward to that we may employ in Kenya?
In dealing with the floods, that is. Like I said, one of the optimum solutions will be to redesign the subsurface drainages, and also aspects like water harvesting. We should take it seriously. Like, we have the National Water Harvesting Authority that's currently dealing with regulating all these issues of water.
All right.
And then with the current solutions, like you can fully recycle wastewater, basically, and use it maybe for your toilets, you can even drink it at some point.
All right.
Yes.
So it means that there is a relation between urban planning and stormwater management.
Yes.
How
a
do
big
they
relation. Urban planning, in the sense that if you fail to plan for your urbanization, eventually you'll have to deal with the stormwater challenges, stormwater flooding problems that we are currently experiencing.
Which takes us back to the common mwananchi hapa chini.
Yes, yes.
What do they need to do on the ground so that they can be, because it's based on what you're saying, it's like one person cannot do everything.
Yes.
Engineers cannot be the only people who we should depend on. What do people need to do on the ground to help us salvage and solve this whole scenario?
We can first start by providing garbage solutions. Like, for instance, to avoid these dumping issues, NEMA can actually sponsor all these garbage collection points instead of leaving to the private sector. The government should just take over the garbage recycling, wastewater recycling, everything, so that in the end we even create employment. Yes.
And I'm looking at, you've talked about recycling, but some parts of the country, do we say that other parts of the country that experience flooding, is it the same as the case of Nairobi County?
It's not really comparable, in the sense that in recent past, like between just August and December, there was a change in climate worldwide that was experienced. So we can't really blame it on human undoing fully.
Okay.
Yes.
What do we look into? So it's a climate change.
Yes.
Is a problem.
Yes.
But then we need to be prepared for that.
Yes.
So if there is climatic change affecting drainage system in some parts of Kenya, how should we be looking forward to in the near future? What should we be doing in the near future to address that problem?
Involve as many hydrology engineers and all engineers generally in redesigning the systems that we have, come up with storage solutions, especially for the water harvesting, come up with the wastewater recycling, yeah, things like that.
Yeah. Let's talk about transportation, connecting it to the drainage. How does urban flooding affect transport management and traffic safety?
The flooding affects transport management in the sense that every time, like I like giving a recent example, in the sense that you saw some people lost their lives, some vehicles were swept. So it basically affects even the traffic safety in that sense, the fact that you can even lose your life. The roads become slippery, there's poor visibility, and that's part of the traffic safety. Another issue is the transport management. It affects the transport management in the sense that whenever it's raining, and maybe there's flooding, you obviously don't expect our traffic marshals to stand and control traffic. So basically they would go home and leave you with the traffic mess. So it directly affects the traffic management, transport management, yes.
All right. As engineers, who are you working with to help in the planning of the nation in general, and specifically even in the different counties as IED?
As IEK?
Yeah, IEK.
Our engineers are the ones involved, because you know we are a learned society of professional engineers. So our engineers are in NTSA, our engineers are in the county governments. They should be fully involved. Whenever there's a planning meeting, there's a planning meeting for the country. Whenever the parliamentarians want to discuss anything with regards to planning, I feel they need to leave the technical issues to the engineers, who are the experts.
Do you approach them, or how do you work
Yeah,
together?
we write letters, we lobby for our engineers. Yes, that's where IEK comes in now. We lobby fully for our engineers.
Okay.
Yes, to be given opportunities, to participate in policy issues, especially like now, this particular one of planning. Yes.
So are all engineers part of IEK?
Yes, it's a voluntary membership. You're not obliged. However, all professional engineers, any chartered engineer is a member of IEK, because according to our act, that is the Engineers Act, you cannot be registered as or rather you cannot be licensed as an engineer without having been a member of IEK.
All right. Thank you very much for coming. That's all the time we had this morning. That is Engineer Linda Radiro, CEO of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. And the viewpoint still continues. After this break, I will be joined by the governor of Kakamega County and the chairman of the Council of Governors. This morning, on the viewpoint at the end, after this break, we'll be talking about county preparedness to counter the coronavirus. What next, especially when it comes to addressing the COVID-19? We'll be back after this break.